الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار والفلك التي تجري في البحر بما ينفع الناس وما أنزل الله من السماء من ماء فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها وبث فيها من كل دابة وتصريف الرياح والسحاب المسخر بين السماء والأرض لآيات لقوم يعقلون صدق الله العظيم. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, in continuation of ayat number 164 of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions to us, and has mentioned to us in this ayah, 7 of his ayat, 7 of his signs in the universal domain, the ayati kuniya, those ayat within the kainat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These 7 that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in this ayah, in this verse of the Quran, they are so that we may reflect. The ayat liqawmi ya'qilun, at the ending of the ayah, it is mentioned that these are ayat and signs for those who have aql, who have common sense, who have intellect, who use their intellect. So these ayat will lead them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will guide them to the truth. And these are the ayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has left for us in His kingdom, so that we as human beings, we may reflect on these. Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ard. We have already gone over 4 of these ayat. The first 4, we were on the 5th one. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us definitely in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and in the alteration of the night and day, and by the ships that sail in the sea for the benefit of mankind. وَمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مِن مَّاءٍ فَأَحْيَا بِهِ الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا. And by the water that is sent down from the sky in the form of rain, with it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives life to the earth after it has died. The 5th sign, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَبَثَّ فِيهَا مِن كُلِّ دَابَّةٍ. And by the creatures that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala scattered in the world, وَبَثَّ فِيهَا. And by the sign that the scattering of dabba, of the creatures, the wild animals in this earth. And this is also a very great sign. There are numerous creatures in this world. There are particular creatures that are mentioned in the Quran, and this is what we came to, discussing particularly the unique system of the bee. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also mentioned the bee in the Quran. There are many animals and creatures mentioned in the Quran. We may not go over all of them, but some of the major ones. And some of the signs related to, or the unique qualities that are mentioned about these creatures, why these particular creatures are mentioned in the Quran, and what qualities are they mentioned with. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also in the Quran has mentioned the bee. Then we come to Surah Al-Kahf. I'm trying my best to go in order, but you can find throughout the Quran these creatures mentioned. In Surah Al-Kahf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us the qissa in the story of Ashab al-Kahf, of the companions of the cave. They were 7 youth that had accepted Iman. At that time there was a Nabi that was sent to this qawm, to this nation. And these 7 youth, they accepted Islam at the hands of that Nabi. And what happened was that there was a time that the believers with that Nabi lived for some time, that enjoyed some protection. Then that Nabi that was sent to that nation, he passed away, and there was a very cruel king that was there, and he oppressed the believers. He did not let the mu'mineen or the believers to have their iman or to practice their deen. They were given two options: either give up your deen and live here, or if you want to stay with your deen, the option is death. You have to die. So the Ashab al-Kahf, they decided to do hijrah. There's also another option given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this surah, along with other surahs in the Quran, are also indicative of the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, along with the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, when they migrated from Mecca to Medina. There are a few stories in the Quran in which the hijrah is mentioned. The story of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, that he made hijrah from Iraq to Palestine. The story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, when he left Misr and he went to Madian for some time and then he came back. And other qisas and stories similar to this. Also the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. He was thrown into the well and then he was taken as a slave. A kind of migration happened. And here the qissa of the Ashab al-Kahf, there are a few other stories similar to this. But the Ashab al-Kahf, they decided to do hijrah. They decided to migrate and leave the land. So when they left, again, they were youth. They were not accustomed to travel. Traveling was not their way. They didn't know where to go, what to do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made one dog to start following them. And this dog started moving around them, but didn't attack them, didn't give them any kind of trouble. But this dog kind of became a guide for them and also a guard for them. It's amazing the miracle nature of the Quran. The qualities of this dog that are mentioned in the qissa, in the story, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this dog then to become their companion, and it went with them and it was guiding them, kind of showing them where to go and where not to go. Along with that, you have to understand that the king had also sent a platoon after them, a kind of small military platoon, to follow them, to capture them and to capture the youth that had accepted Iman, the mu'mineen. So these 7 youth, they were going, and the dog was guiding them, but also protecting them, sometimes in the front, sometimes on the side, sometimes in the back. In different ways, the dog was guiding them, and the dog took them to this one cave. And the dog and the guards were also coming, so the dog stood at the mouth of the cave, told the youth to kind of go inside. And when the youth went inside, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought a kind of sleep on them, a slumber on them. And the dog also sitting in the mouth of the cave as a guard. And the youth, they had a very deep sleep, a slumber. But with that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent sleep. And with that sleep, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also sent ru'ub, a kind of fear. And ru'ub is one of those very unique gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to some of His awliya, some of His friends. The Anbiya alayhim as-salam, the prophets and messengers, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and many other righteous, those that are righteous and salihin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He helps them with ru'ub. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also mentioned in a hadith, "Nusirtu bil ru'ub," that I've been helped with ru'ub. Ru'ub is, they give various translations: fear, terror. And it means that when you go to someone and you have this kind of overwhelming fear of that person, or an overwhelming, like you cannot control yourself. There's not really, the person may not be a bad person. The person is a very good person, a very righteous person. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a kind of ru'ub with the righteous people. And this happens with those who are righteous, who have Iman, who also were very, very righteous, perform righteous deeds. They stay away from sins. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them a natural ru'ub. You'll find this with many of the scholars and the ulama, that sometimes when we go to them, there's so much kind of ru'ub with them that you feel afraid to even speak in their presence. part of reverence, and they're very, very kind, very, very nice. Some of the nicest people you may meet, and they'll even treat you in the most kindest in a way, and there'll be nothing, kind of fearful of them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put that as a kind of protection for His righteous. So these 7 youth, they were in this cave, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought this ru'b. Anyone even coming close to the cave, all of a sudden would feel immense fear, and they would run away from this cave, or they would try to run away from there. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this in the ayat. وَتَرَى الشَّمْسَ إِذَا طَلَعَتْ تَزَاوَرُ عَنْ كَهْفِهِمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَإِذَا غَرَبَتْ تَقْرِضُهُمْ ذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ وَهُمْ فِي فَجْوَةٍ مِّنْهُ ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ مَن يَهْدِ اللَّهُ فَهُوَ الْمُهْتَدِ وَمَن يُضْلِلْ فَلَن تَجِدَ لَهُ وَلِيًّا مُرْشِدًا وَتَحْسَبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ ونقلبهم ذات اليمين وذات الشمال وكلبهم باسط ذراعيه بالوصيد لو اطلعت عليهم لوليت منهم فرارا لو اطلعت عليهم لوليت منهم فرارا ولملئت منهم رعبا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Kahf the whole situation of the cave and the system of the cave. A kind of, anyone couldn't even near them, they used to run away. وَلَمُلِئْتَ مِنْهُمْ رُعْبًا, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought a ru'b in that cave. A kind of fear. Anyone would even come close, out of fear they used to run away. But the mention of the dog is also mentioned in the ayat of the Quran, and it is also mentioned in the traditions in the hadith. And this dog became their companion, it became their friend, it became their guide, it became their protector. They were youth, they didn't know much, and they were not very well acquainted. But this is also the help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's side for those who believe in Him and who for His sake, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they migrate and they want to hold on to their deen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the doors and the avenues for them. So this is also one of the creatures mentioned in the Quran, the kalb, or the dog. It's mentioned quite a few times. سيقولون ثلاثة رابعهم كلبهم ويقولون سبعة سادسهم كلبهم رجما بالغيب. So like this. So they were the 7 youth and the dog. And it's amazing that the two major qualities of the dog are mentioned. That the dog was a guide and also a protector. You have to understand that at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it was not a common custom to keep dogs as pets. In fact, there were not that many dogs. People did not keep many dogs. So it was not something that was commonly known about the friendship of a dog, or the dog can be used as a guide, or the dog can be whatever. There were some people that used to keep dogs. They were hunters in the desert, or they used to be hunters and they used to have. But it was a very rare thing. It was not some common norm like we see in this time and age. So it was not even known that dogs could be a companion to a human being, or dog can be a guide or a protector, whatever the case might be. So this is also of the miracles of the Quran, the qualities of the dog that is mentioned. So this is mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf. One of the many creatures that are mentioned in the Quran is a dog also. Yes, we know in Sharia that when it comes to the system of najasa, when we speak about the system of what is considered filth or filthy, so the saliva of a dog is amongst the things that are najis. The saliva of the dog is considered najis. It is part of najasa. So if a dog eats out of a utensil, or drinks water out of some utensil, so if we want to, as believers, use that, then we should clean it. There's a particular way to clean it. Again, there are different opinions in the different madhahib. Some clean it 3 times, some clean it 7 times. Some clean it more than that. They clean it 7 times, and 1 time they do it with dirt. Whatever the case is, there's a system that is mentioned about the filthy nature of the saliva of the dog. Also, if that saliva gets on a human being's clothing, so a mu'min, as believers, we're not to be able to pray with those clothing. It's amongst the najis items. Again, keeping a dog at home as a pet, this is again not allowed in Sharia. And there's a particular hadith about this that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has told us لا يدخل الملائكة بيتا فيه كلب أو تصاوير. أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, that the angels do not enter that house. And again, the muhaddithin are very clear about this, that these angels are the angels of rahmah, angels of mercy. They do not enter that house that has a dog in it or that has tasawir, has pictures. So pictures are also something that we should be very, very careful about. It can become a hindrance of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So dogs are not to be kept at home as pets. Yes, you can keep a hunting dog. There are particular exemptions that Sharia has given. You can keep a dog as a hunting dog. You can keep a dog as a guard dog. You can, for those who are blind, they're allowed to keep a dog as a guide dog. So there are particular scenarios where you can have a dog. But in general, those are some of the things that should be understood about the najis nature, the impure nature of the saliva of the dog, and also not keeping the dog as a pet. And there are many, many reasons to it. But the very nature of the dog is something we as human beings, to go very much in detail may be difficult, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created insan, has created us human beings with a very unique nature. Our nature is that we tend to adapt and we tend to mold. Our environment, it molds us, it affects us. We're affected by our environment. We're affected by the company that we keep. One of the most powerful things that can affect a human being is the company they keep, the kind of friends we have. It's a famous saying about us human beings. المرء على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم من يخالل. A man is on the religion of his friends. So each of you should be very careful or beware who you befriend. So when we befriend someone, we take the company of someone. Human nature is that those qualities come onto us. They rub onto us. The same applies with animals. If you keep certain animals, so those qualities will rub off on you. Cats are known to be very clean. In fact, some of the Sahaba used to keep cats as pets. The famous name, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. Hurairah was not his name. But he used to keep kittens in his sleeve. He used to take care of baby kittens and he used to really like cats. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on occasion called him Abu Hurairah, Ya Aba Hurairah, the father of kittens. And so he used to take care of kittens and cats and he used to keep them. And even there are few incidents where a cat came around Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam kind of showed mercy and kindness and took care of the cat. He was an incident with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He was resting or sleeping, and a cat came onto his clothing or some part of the mat, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam kind of covered up the cat and kept it and allowed it to rest. And again, there are these indications that you are allowed to keep a cat. And again, I'm not giving any kind of fatwa or anything. There may be some people that are allergic to cats, and this different story. I'm just sharing with you the kind of animals that, and there's a reason in Sharia why, because cats are naturally very clean. They also have very different types of qualities. Some of those qualities will rub off on a human. As far as dogs, naturally they're not clean. And they have other natures that their nature will rub off on the human being, and it can become a very, very evil nature, a kind of nature that a human being should not have. But these qualities of the dog are mentioned in the Quran. Now, it has happened that because in Islam, the dog is considered as najis, impure. In some countries, in some cultures, the dogs are mistreated because of this. But Islam teaches us very, very clearly that we should be very, very careful mistreating any creature, any animal. We're not supposed to mistreat them or show any kind of disrespect to them or harm them and cause them trouble. We should leave them. Let them be. So the dog is also mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf amongst the many animals that are mentioned in the Quran. Going further into the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions An-Naml. The whole surah, Surah An-Naml. which is the Namla. An-Namla is mentioned, and An-Naml, the Surah An-Naml, which is the surah about the ants. An-Naml means the ant. In the ayah of Surah An-Naml, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Namla. Hatta Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the ayat, Hatta idha Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وحشر لسليمان جنوده من الجن والإنس والطير فهم يوزعون حتى إذا أتوا على واد النمل قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون. There was an incident, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the surah mentions Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam. And in great detail, this qissa speaks about the life of a military, how the military or how the army operates. There's a command center, the command system, and the whole army listens to the commander, to the person who is in charge. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout this qissa, throughout the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam, mentions the power of Sulaiman alayhi salam as being a military leader. He was a king, but along with being king, he was the military leader. And this is the idea that the world leaders got. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the role of a king being a military leader. That's why even in the Western culture, the president is considered commander-in-chief, meaning commander-in-chief of the army. But this is mentioned in the Quran about Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam, the most wealthiest human being to ever live. One of the gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to Sulaiman alayhi salam, his wealth was, you cannot really put a number on it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him an army of man, of jinn, of birds. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him mantiq at-tayr, taught him the language of the birds. And one unique thing about that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him bilingual of the animals. He was able to understand the language of the animals. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala particularly gave him ilm and fahm of understanding even the language of the ants. So Sulaiman alayhi salam, he was walking with his army or traveling with his army, and they happened to come upon an army, they happened to come upon an ant pile. It was a massive ant pile. And when they were coming close, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Hatta idha ataw ala wad al-naml, until they came to the wad al-naml, the valley of ants. Qalat namla, the namla made a call out. And you have to understand that in the system of ants, any major decision that is made by the queen ant. And there is a system of information, how the information gets to that queen ant very, very quickly. And how the message is sent out by the queen ant very, very quickly. Decisions are made very fast. So this information got to the queen ant that Sulaiman alayhi salam is coming with his army. Not all the ants knew about it, but this information reached the queen ant. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Qalat namla, the namla, the queen, the ant said out, cried out, Ya ayyuhan namlu udkhulu masakinakum, O ants, enter into your homes. Get inside. La yahtimannakum Sulaiman wa junuduhu wa hum la yash'urun. There's the danger that Sulaiman alayhi salam and his army will crush you and they won't even realize it. So the queen ant passed this command, and Sulaiman alayhi salam, when he was going with his army, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَتَبَسَّمَ ضَاحِكًا مِّن قَوْلِهَا. Sulaiman alayhi salam, he smiled at her words, what she said to her, what kind of a command she gave. You know, and it's amazing how there's a very, very deep wisdom. There's so many wisdoms. Again, to go into the wisdom of the Quran is too much, but there are many wisdoms in the military system mentioned in this surah. And one of those is that whenever a command is given by a commander, the command is quick. The command is given very quickly. And many a times there's a reason attached with it, so that those who are fulfilling that command understand the magnitude behind the command. Sometimes we're told to do something, we don't know why we're doing it, so we become lazy in doing it. You know, someone tells us run. We don't know why we're running. We just start running. Why are we running? But if someone tells us run, fire is coming. We run very fast. Immediately we get the message, oh, there's something dangerous coming. So like this, one is giving the command to someone, and one is with the command giving a very appropriate response of why. So the person carrying out that command can understand why haste is needed in fulfilling that command. So this ant did not just give the command to the other ants, go into your dwellings. It gave the reason why. It didn't just say, Ya ayyuhan namlu udkhulu masakinakum. It didn't just say, oh ants, enter into your homes, finish. It already gave that command. But with that, it added, لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون. Should not be that you're crushed by Sulaiman alayhi salam and his army and they don't even realize it. Like the army is coming. Hurry up and get away and make preparations. And that is an amazing thing, because when you start to read the surah, this is one of the first commands that are given about an army and the operation of an army. Sulaiman alayhi salam, he stopped his army. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then mentioned he stopped his army, and one of the narrations also comes that he even then had a dialogue with this ant, and many things different happens between. This was how the military life, the operation of a military life. This is the message that is taken from the qawl of this ant. There's one is the message that a leader must always take care and must be concerned about the welfare of those that they're leading. A leader should not be heedless, thinking only of themselves, or selfish, thinking only of themselves, or heedless, not caring for those that are under their command, but should have great concern for those under their command. If a leader does not have concern, then those under their command will perish. Also, if a leader is selfish, only saving themselves and not caring for those under them, again, those that are followers will perish. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this ant that had concern for all those that were under her command, and also the kind of command that she was giving and protecting those under her command. She was not being selfish about just herself. She could have easily just saved herself. There are other commands that are mentioned in the surah as well. The operation of an army. Once information comes, it should be verified. Sulaiman alayhi salam, when he stopped the army, he realized that there was a bird that had gone missing, and it was supposed to be part of the protocol. This bird was supposed to be with the army, and it was there, but it had left without permission. So Sulaiman alayhi salam was very well aware of those that were needed in that time, and he knew who was what. And this also shows the system of a leader, that a leader should be very well aware of who's under their command. When they give a command or they order some platoon to go, they should know who's there. They should not be like the order and they're surprised if somebody's there or somebody's not there. No, they should know. So Sulaiman alayhi salam, he knew that this bird was there, but now all of a sudden he'd gone missing without permission. The next thing is the bird brought information, the system of verification. Sulaiman alayhi salam did not just take the word of the bird and say, okay, finish. Yeah, you're telling the truth. And no, the bird came with some unique information. And Sulaiman alayhi salam, he wanted to verify. Very soon we're going to see if you're telling the truth or you're lying, just trying to save yourself. Once the letter was sent to the queen, I'm just quickly going over that story, because when you go to the system of the military, there's so many protocols. It's amazing how many protocols are mentioned in the surah. And these protocols, only someone who's been through military, they can understand these protocols. It's amazing. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was not a military general. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him that gift that he became a military general. But just to understand the system of a military, this is a miracle of the Quran. How many protocols are mentioned in Surah An-Naml? And that's why An-Naml is, that even the name of the surah is given, is the system, the military system of the ant world. That is the reason behind why this surah is called Surah An-Naml. There are many, many other protocols that are mentioned in this surah. In the story of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam, then there's the story of Salih alayhi salam. The particular system of how the people plotted against him, how that plot was then foiled, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the details of all of that and how that plot became their own downfall. There are many, many, many protocols mentioned in this surah. So this is the system of, or the other creature that is mentioned in the Quran, an-naml. The next is the al-ankabut. And the Quran is also a mention of al-ankabut, or the spider. Inshallah, we will continue about that from tomorrow, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. عن أبي أمامة الباهلي رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول اقرأوا القرآن فإنه يأتي يوم القيامة شفيعا لأصحابه. اقرأوا الزهراوين البقرة وسورة آل عمران فإنهما يأتيان يوم القيامة كأنهما غمامتان أو كأنهما غيايتان وكأنهما فرقان من طير صواف تحاجان عن أصحابهما. اقرأوا سورة البقرة فإن أخذها بركة وتركها حسرة ولا يستطيعها البطلة أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. قال معاوية رضي الله عنه بلغني أن البطلة السحرة. رواه Muslim. This hadith is in Sahih Muslim. It's a lengthy hadith and we have already gone over this hadith. Sayyidina Abu Umama al-Bahili radiyallahu anhu, he narrates, I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, Iqra'ul Qur'an, recite the Qur'an. Because on the day of judgment, the Qur'an will come as an intercessor for those who used to recite it, for its companion. Recite the Az-Zahrawain, the two shining ones, Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al Imran, because these will come on the day of judgment as two clouds, or two shades, or two flocks of birds in rows coming, pleading for those who used to recite them. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam further said, Iqra'u Surah Al-Baqarah, particularly recite Surah Al-Baqarah. فَإِنَّ أَخْذَهَا بَرَكَةٌ, because taking it, memorizing it, learning it, reading it, making it part of your life, barakah is full of blessings. It'll make your life full of blessings. وَتَرْكَهَا حَسْرًا, and giving it up or leaving it will become regretful. It will become a means of grief and regret. وَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُهَا الْبَطَلَةُ, and those who are wicked, al-batala, they're not able to exploit Surah Al-Baqarah. So this is the end of the hadith. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he ended the hadith with وَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُهَا الْبَطَلَةُ, that the wicked ones, they're not able to exploit Surah Al-Baqarah. قال Muawiyah, Sayyidina Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu, he narrates, بَلَغَنِي, it has reached me, or I've been informed, أَنَّ الْبَطَلَةَ السَّحَرَةَ, that the al-batala, the wicked ones that are mentioned in this hadith, they are as-sahara, the magicians. Now, this hadith is in Sahih Muslim. One thing about the magicians is that the nature of magician is that they do magic or sihr. And the nature of sihr is that you have to have something that has some effect. If something does not have a particular effect, you cannot misuse it. This is the nature of sahirin. Sahir, a magician, when he wants to harm someone with sihr, when he wants to use magic to harm someone, whatever magic he uses to harm someone, he has to get it from something that has some effect. If something does not have an effect, he cannot use it. Okay? This is the nature of sahirin. This is what sahirin always try and look for. It's very easy to understand. It's like a battery. If you have a battery that has energy in it, the battery is charged in it, then you can use that battery. If the battery does not have charge, you cannot use it. Now, there's also a system where the battery you may use may be so strong that if you put the wrong battery into something and the thing you put it in cannot handle that kind of power, so you destroy the item it is put in. This is two things. Either the battery does not have charge, you cannot use it, it will not be of any benefit to you. Or the battery is so strong that it will harm you, whatever you put it in. It will destroy whatever you put it in. In some countries, this happens very often. It's a very common phenomenon with the live wire and the electricity. The electricity is not like here in the Western world where It's a certain voltage and it works everywhere. In some of those countries, the electricity comes and goes. Sometimes different voltages move around. Some places get more energy, some places get less energy at different times of the day. And many people get shocked. It's very common to get shocked. Sometimes overload in one area and many people get harmed. So this is a common phenomenon with the electricity or with energy or with things that have power. So the sahirin, the magicians, whenever they do sihr, they look for items that have any kind of effect. And they always like to use those kind of items that have some benefit, and then they try and twist that benefit. That's how sihr was when you get to the dark arts and the study of the dark arts, the origin of the dark arts, how the dark arts started. So the dark arts began with the twisting of the verses of the Torah. And the historical relevance goes back to Bukhti Nasr. There was a famous king that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him to destroy the Bani Israel because the Bani Israel had killed the prophets that were sent to them. There was two famous prophets, Sha'ya alayhi salam and Armiya alayhi salam, and the Bani Israel killed Sha'ya alayhi salam and they put Armiya alayhi salam in prison. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a punishment sent Bukhti Nasr against them, Nebuchadnezzar, and he was a king from Babel, from Iraq. So he came and he took the Bani Israel as slaves and he destroyed their dwellings and really destroyed their power. So the Bani Israel, they went to those that were alive and taken as slaves. They went to their priests and they wanted to know in any way they could harm Bukhti Nasr and his people, because Nebuchadnezzar, Bukhti Nasr and his army was very powerful. There was nothing they could do. So these magicians, they started sitting, and these rabbis and the priests, they sat down and they tried to figure out a way to weaponize the verses of the Torah. This is how wicked they were, and they started figuring out ways to, rather than making it a means of blessings or cure or benefit, they started twisting it. And this is the nature of the sahirin, or those that do sihr. They try to find something that is of benefit and they try and twist it, try to make it harmful. This is But when it comes to Surah Al-Baqarah, so Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us very clearly, وَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُهَا الْبَطَلَةِ. Those that are wicked, those that are the sahirin, they will not have the power to extract anything harmful from Surah Al-Baqarah. Even though Surah Al-Baqarah is extremely powerful, extremely beneficial, full of blessings, but the sahirin cannot use that. And there's also another deep message here, that we may use other ayat in the Quran as a means of protection, as ruqya against sihr. But the sahirin may have some verses that they may know from the Torah, which they have twisted, that they may be able to basically reverse the effect, to make the sihr work. But when it comes to Surah Al-Baqarah, the sahirin don't have anything to combat it. So the best protection against sihr, magic, and all of these things is in Surah Al-Baqarah. Some of the verses are very clear. And also the ad'iyah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam particularly mentioned for protection against sihr, particularly قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مُعَوَّذَتَيْن, and other ad'iyah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is the kind of gist of this hadith mentioned in Sahih Muslim. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ.